You know, in aviation, some safety systems are designed to be absolutely foolproof. But what happens when the very thing designed to save a plane ends up destroying it? Well, in November 2008, high above the French coast, a cutting-edge Airbus A320 did something terrifying. It turned on its own crew.
I mean, just imagine that for a second. You're a pilot wrestling with the controls of a plane that seems to have a mind of its own, a plane that is actively fighting you, trying to plunge itself into the sea. That was a horrifying reality for the crew of XL Airways Flight 888 Tango. They were in a battle for their lives against their own aircraft.
So how does this even happen? The Airbus A320 is famous, legendary even, for its computerized flight protections that make it almost impossible to stall. So what on earth could have gone so wrong? How did this marvel of modern engineering just fall out of the sky? Well, when you start to unravel that mystery, you find a chain of events that's more unbelievable than you can imagine.
Okay, so at the heart of this entire story is a paradox. A plane that is designed from the ground up to be stall-proof, stalled. And to understand why, we've got to look at what this flight was actually about, because it was anything but routine.
Yeah, this wasn't about flying vacationers from point A to point B. This Airbus was at the end of its lease with a German airline, and it was being handed back to its owner, Air New Zealand. So this flight, it was like the final exam, a whole series of intense, in-flight tests to make sure the plane was in perfect shape before Air New Zealand would sign off and take it back.
And the people on board? We're not talking about rookies here, not even close. In the cockpit, you had 3 pilots with, get this, almost 40,000 flight hours between them. The captain, Norbert Kappel, he wasn't just a pilot, he was an examiner. He was the guy who tested other pilots to see if they were good enough. These were the best of the best.
So, you've got a supercritical test flight with a top-tier crew. What could go wrong? Well, the first domino started to wobble before they even got to the most important tests. Their whole carefully laid out plan was about to get thrown out the window.
The original plan was simple: fly out over the Bay of Biscay, where there's tons of open sky, and do their thing. But air traffic control on the ground was a little nervous. Turns out another test flight earlier that day had caused some chaos. So, when Flight 888 Tango called in and asked for permission, the answer was a flat no. This forced the crew to just improvise, squeezing in these complex tests whenever and wherever they could.
Now, before we go any further, there's a quick piece of tech we got to understand, because it's at the center of everything. The A320 is a fly-by-wire jet. See, in older planes, the pilot's controls are physically linked to the wings with cables and pulleys. Not here. In the A320, the pilot moves the joystick, and that's just a request to a computer. The computer then moves the flight controls in the safest, most efficient way. It's an incredible system.
And this computer system, it's so good, it acts like a guardian angel for the pilots. It's literally designed to make it impossible for human error to push the plane past its safety limits. And its #1 job? To prevent stalls.
The system has a few different modes, or laws as they're called. Pretty much all the time the plane is in normal law. That's the full guardian angel mode with all the protections online. You literally can't stall the plane. But if there's a serious system failure, it can drop into alternate law, where a lot of those automatic safety nets, they just disappear.
So this brings us to the most important test of the day. The crew had to deliberately slow the plane way down, right to the edge of a stall, to make sure a feature called Alpha Floor worked. Think of Alpha Floor as the plane's ultimate panic button. It's supposed to automatically slam the engines to full power to prevent a stall, no matter what the pilot does.
With their original plan in shreds and time running out, the crew made a decision that would seal their fate. They decided to perform this incredibly dangerous low-speed test while on their final approach to the airport, a move that goes against every rule in the book.
I mean, this right here just shows you the shortcut they took. The manual is perfectly clear. You do this test above 14,000 feet. That gives you plenty of sky to recover if anything goes wrong. They started it at just 3,000 feet, over the ocean, on their way into land. They were putting all their faith in the plane's automatic protections to save them.
And this is how it all came apart in just 35 seconds. The plane slows and slows. The stall warning starts screaming in the cockpit. But Alpha Floor, that automatic safety feature, it never kicks in. The captain reacts immediately, manually slamming the throttles to full power. But that sudden burst of thrust makes the nose pitch up violently. The computers, now totally confused, just give up. All the protections vanish, and just like that, they're in a full stall with only 3,000 feet between them and the water.
Look, doing the test that low was a huge mistake, for sure, but it shouldn't have been a fatal one. The plane's guardian angel was supposed to be on duty. It should have stepped in. So the number one question for investigators was, why did the computer just sit there and let the plane stall?
The answer, it turns out, wasn't something the pilots did wrong in that moment, and it wasn't a flaw in the software. No, the root cause was traced back to a seemingly harmless maintenance job done days earlier, a little shortcut that set a deadly trap. To understand what happened, you need to know about these little things right here. They're called angle of attack sensors, or AOA sensors. They are absolutely critical. They're basically tiny vanes that tell the flight computer exactly how the wing is hitting the air. That data is what the computer uses to know if a stall is about to happen. It's so important that the A320 has 3 of them for redundancy.
And here is the fatal chain of events. 3 days before the accident flight, the plane was being washed after getting its new paint job. The procedure calls for a gentle cleaning. Instead, the maintenance crew took a shortcut and used a high-pressure water hose. They didn't put protective covers on the AOA sensors, and water was forced deep inside 2 of them. Then, during the flight, when the plane climbed to 30,000 feet where it's brutally cold, that trapped water froze solid.
And this is the tragic, fatal irony of the whole story. The A320's computer is designed to handle a single failed sensor. But in this case, 2 sensors failed in the exact same way. They were both frozen solid in a position that indicated a normal, safe flight. So the flight computer saw 2 sensors agreeing with each other, and 1 sensor that disagreed. Its logic told it to trust the majority, and to completely ignore the data from the one single, perfectly working sensor.
So when the pilots slowed the plane down for that test, the plane itself was completely blind to the danger. Its main sensors were telling the computer, everything is fine, our angle is perfect. The guardian angel system can't protect you from a danger it can't see. The stall warning did eventually go off thanks to that one good sensor, but by then the deadly cascade of events was already in motion and there was no stopping it.
The crash of Flight 888 Tango was a massive wake-up call for the entire aviation industry. It was a terrifying example of how a few small, unrelated shortcuts, one on the ground during maintenance, one in the air during a test, could conspire to defeat one of the most advanced safety systems in the world. And in the aftermath, changes came fast. New, much stricter rules were put in place for these kinds of non-passenger flights to stop crews from improvising dangerous tests. Maintenance manuals were updated with huge warnings about protecting critical sensors during washing. And crucially, pilot training was changed to better prepare pilots for that rare but catastrophic scenario where all the automated protections just disappear.
You know, when you really boil it down, the story of Flight 888 Tango is just a powerful and tragic reminder. It shows that in these incredibly complex systems, there really are no minor rules or small procedures. From a maintenance worker with a pressure washer to a world-class pilot taking a shortcut, little moments of complacency can add up, and they can punch holes in the layers of safety we all count on.
And that really leaves us with a final, pretty sobering thought. We're surrounded by amazing technology designed to keep us safe, from the cars we drive to the computers we use. But this story makes you ask, what hidden traps are lying dormant inside those systems, just waiting for the right combination of small human shortcuts to bring everything crashing down?